With the FOMC meeting speech later today, we are expecting to see the Fed either do a 0.75 point raise or potentially pivot. There's a lot of speculation as to a pivot going on with the US, and a lot of people thinking actually it's going to be pretty much business as usual. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and let's get right down into some analysis of BTC and how people are potentially pricing in the speech later today. Here we have Bitcoin paired up with USDT on the hourly chart, and Binance is our data source. Now, I am still expecting this move to the upside. Okay, however, we've got to be aware that we are looking at some volatility within this range, and we are still actually bouncing around a fair amount. Okay, so we can see in the last hour, we can see the price pulling back down just a little bit here. I'm just outside of our little area here of previous demand and supply. You can see it's flipped around a fair few times. Previously, supply over here was a bit of demand. It was also demand, became supply, gained supply, and is back into that kind of supply range. So it is really struggling around this area. We're just kind of ranging a little bit. Now, Elliott wave theory will tell us that we've still got a bit more room to the downside to go. Okay, if I pull this back over here, you can kind of see we might come down to the lower box again. Again, this is a big demand zone down here. So if I was to draw this in for a sec, we can kind of see we might come down like so, right? Now, we obviously do have our B wave low point over here. And, you know, for the most part, I wouldn't mind just coming back down to this area just one more time before we move back up again. So we could lower our B wave down, and we could look at this whole entire thing as a giant kind of B wave here. So I'm not too concerned about that. It does look like there's a little bit of volatility in there, but I'm not going to short the market or anything like that. You can see already with this particular wick right here that there's a lot of buying pressure even in this little zone, right? So again, if I were to go and draw this on, right in here, you can see that there's a fair amount of buying pressure already. So the market is trying to price in what they think is going to happen with the Fed later, in my opinion. And it looks like you're experiencing some volatility on that space. Now, with that being said, if we take a look at the stochastic RSIs, you know, we're looking okay on some of these timeframes. It's not too bad. You can see this hourly correcting really nicely again from oversold to overbought, and then from back to overbought down to the oversold area. So again, nothing too much going on there, nothing unusual in my eyes. Still thinking that we're moving on progressively to the upside. The only question becomes, is it going to be on the back of the news? And I don't really want to be involved in a long position on Bitcoin during that. I would like to see this kind of progress up, maybe price it back in to the upside, and then try to get out. I'm thinking that this is going to be the obvious area, like 20,750, 20,850. This yellow box is probably the area that will be the safer one, but we'll see how it kind of goes. We could have this explosive move up to 21k. 21.5k or so later today, depending on how this Fed meeting goes. So essentially everything's looking okay. I'm not too concerned about the price action here. It does look okay. And essentially, if I actually go ahead and use some trend lines and draw these in, you can kind of see that we are coiling up into a bit of a wedge. Pull this in here, for example, you can kind of see it's just kind of getting into a place like this. Okay, so we're coiling up in here, and I do think we're going to break to the upside out of it. So yeah, it's one of those. It's one of those to kind of keep an eye on. Now, it's probably worth noting that there's some other stuff that goes on in the background, right? So straight off the bat, obviously have the FOMC today. So basically the meeting was yesterday, the speech will be today. In UK times, I think that is 6 o'clock this evening, but I could be wrong on that. Let me know if you have more details UK-wise as to when you're expecting that to be. In fact, I might be able to find it, because I think, I do think we had a screenshot. Yeah, this one. Let me just grab this. So let me see if I can just pull this in here for a second. There we go. And let me just zoom out of this. So on the second here, USA, it's actually 7:30 UK time. Okay, so, and that's going to be the press conference from the Fed. 7 o'clock is the interest rates decision. So yes, basically 7 p.m. UK time is going to be when we see that. So yes, there's a lot of stuff going on globally here. So we have the South Korea interest rates today. We have the S&P global manufacturing figures. We have the Fed interest rate decision, and we have the Fed press conference. Then tomorrow we've got the Hong Kong interest rate, the Euro area unemployment rate, the Bank of England interest rate, and Canada's balance of trade. So there's a lot going on this week, right? So we've got to bear those things in mind. Now, there's a lot of speculation as to what to expect. Most people are expecting 0.75. So that's kind of what it is. There are a handful of people, though, that think there's going to be a pivot. So we kept bear in mind those kind of things as well. It's probably worth also noting that we have got more in the way of inflows than we have outflows. This means that there's an increased amount of supply willing to sell right now. So just bear in mind that has an effect of price suppression, but this was just yesterday, so I don't have today's figures. So this is going to be interesting, right? Yesterday we saw 39,000 going onto the exchanges, 35,000 coming off. So again, the red line above the green line, or the supply above the demand, if depending on how you want to look at it. And we can also take a look at some of these wallet counts as well, right? We can see that the retail has been buying up a little bit, but not so much on the dolphin side. But the shrimps have been accumulating a tad here. The whales, and this is really interesting, right? The sharks have been coming out, and the whales have been doing absolutely nothing. They've just been static for days. Up here, another increase with the Kraken size wallets. There's 108 wallets now with over 10,000 Bitcoin in them. And I know a lot of retail money will look at this and think, oh, that's fantastic. We've got some really good growth with the higher sized wallet. But actually, what you got to bear in mind, this is how the Kraken wallet actually operated in 2018. They accumulated them in the bear market, and then they dumped it into the market, bringing in the actual bear market bottom. Okay, whereas the whales, they were doing pretty much nothing and going sideways for a bit until they got to this flat period here and started to accumulate. They were accumulating during this particular phase because this is where the retail money was getting shaken out. Okay, and so if we reflect on where we are right now, we've got nothing happening really with the whales. They're kind of just bobbing along pretty easily. We've got the shrimps actually still accumulating, not getting shaken out. So until the shrimps are shaken out, I'm not expecting the whales to be buying, and then from the whales aren't buying, I'm not expecting the Kraken size wallet to be dumping on the market to bring in the bear market bottom. I think that these are either exchanges or whales in themselves, and they're working together collaboratively to bring the market down to the prices that they want. The bottom, in my opinion, is not in, and that splits opinions. It's entirely up to you if you choose to believe that or not. I have the data to kind of help me understand why I think that is the case, but essentially here we have a lot of information that tells us that basically the whales are not buying. Big money is not buying, and therefore, why should we? I have that kind of approach of, these guys are the ones that control the market. These are the ones that bring in the bottoms of bear markets, and essentially they're doing what they did in 2018. With all that being said, the actual price action of BTC has done something vastly different. It hasn't been doing exactly what it had done in previous bear markets. In the previous two bear markets, 2015 and 2018, the price action in terms of its structural points and Fibonacci retracements stayed above or hit the 1.236 retracement into the bear market bottom. What we've done so far in the case of Bitcoin here is actually go down to the 1.382. And it's an indication that actually everything that's happened in the history of Bitcoin is now being rewritten for new history, which means we can't just rely on simple indicators and giving us a clear view as to what has been going on in the bear market so far. There's a lot of actual deeper things that we have to kind of consider. And I think that wallet counts, the inflows, the outflows, the actual structure of the market is more important than following something as simple as an EMA. Although the 200 EMA is given us a pretty clear example as to a bear market situation where we're well below it, we've tested it, we got rejected from it, and we are actually currently not at the point of actually going back and retesting that 200 weekly EMA at the moment either. So although we are short-term bullish, and I went through this yesterday with all that kind of really bullish news in the headlines, short-term bullish, sure. Long term, probably not. So I'm looking at the price action thinking that we've got this move to the upside. I do think this is something that we're going to see. If I bring our stochastic RSI back in, take a look at the 4 hour, we've got plenty of growth here. We've got some growth here on the 8 hour, not a problem. And the daily has just started to peak on down a fraction here, but I don't think this is the end. I don't think we're going to go straight down. I could be wrong, of course, which is why I don't want to have some exposure to Bitcoin's market until after this Fed speech is out. As you can kind of see, my slightly longer term picture here on the daily chart for Bitcoin is to come down towards this lower range. I have this currently scoped out at 16,314 to 16,744, but it wouldn't surprise me if we come down towards the 1.382 or even the 1.236 on those fib levels, because these would actually be key levels of liquidity. If I go ahead and throw in my order blocks, for example, right between the 1.236 and the 1.382 on the charts down here, you can see this green block. This is a buy order block, and this order block here is showing us massive amounts of liquidity on the daily chart. So it wouldn't surprise me, although my Fibonacci retracements with my Elliott wave ABC structure is indicating that the demand zone is approximately here, it wouldn't surprise me if we just pull back a fraction more and actually grab this liquidity. Just bear in mind that the next kind of sell block is all the way up here at just short of $50,000, so there's not a lot of reason to think that the price is going to go up there when there isn't too much liquidity to be grabbing. Essentially, the liquidity is down lower in the charts, and I think that is where the market wants to go. So just bear these things in mind. We've got this big kind of ABC structure. We're looking at this as a big B wave coming up. So my expectations are that we complete this up here, and then we move on down as a part of this. Okay, so I'm still looking at this as about $21,000, and then what I'm thinking is all of that is a big A, B, and C that brings us back down into this lower range on here. So everything's kind of up for grabs, but I am a little bit cautious with the volatility that will come from this speech this afternoon or this evening. So there's going to be some opportunities. Like I said, I don't want to have the exposure at that time. So I'm already in a long position on BTC, and I want to kind of think about my exit of that position before the meeting. So whatever happens here, whether we do actually meet the higher expectations before the speech from the Fed, or whether or not I have to exit early, those are the things that will be decided a little bit later today. But my expectations are that if we don't get good progression, I would like to think that we're up here at 20,750 to 20,800 by that time. That's going to be a key area to exit. And of course, if we are pushing a little bit higher, then there's obviously additional ranges to be thinking about around the $21,000 or pushing up into the higher range. Essentially, I do think this trade that I'm in is going to be in profit, and I do think it's going to be showing its hand over the course of the next few hours as the market tries to price in various different scenarios from the Fed. Okay, so I'm going to leave this video right there. If you found it useful and informative, hit the like button. I do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Guys, until the next one, have a fantastic day.